Welcome to this week's podcast. I'm Tim Weigel, New York State IPM Program Grape and Hops IPM Specialist and Team Leader of the Lake Erie Regional Grape Program. Been getting a lot of calls lately about late season pests in grapes, primarily powdery mildew and grape berry moth. With the powdery mildew, we're standing in a Concord vineyard at the Cornell Lake Erie Research and Extension Laboratory, and you can see that like every year about this time, this is the first week of September, we're seeing powdery mildew coming in, or it is in. You can see on some of the newer growth, this is powdery mildew. It will cup up the leaves. We're not really concerned with it. Research by Wayne Wilcox years ago showed that we really didn't have to worry, in Concords, we didn't have to worry about powdery mildew infections unless we were in a huge overcrop situation, which is why we keep stressing every year, 30 days post-bloom, you should go out, do crop estimations, see what you have, and then you can try and decide whether you need to do things later in the season. We still have some active powdery mildew on the older foliage, along with some, you can see the darker spots here where the powdery mildew has died over time, either through sprays that we've put on or just sunlight and the high temperatures that we've had this year. So with Concord, we're really not worried about it. The Labrusca grapes, we're not too worried about it. Powdery mildew and downy mildew in our wine grape varieties, especially the really susceptible vinifera varieties, we have to keep our eye on it. And we need to keep that under control. We want to keep the leaves on, especially if you have late season reds that you want to mature. You need to make sure that you have leaves. You also want to have good leaf surface there, photosynthetic capacity later into the season to help with the winter hardiness of those varieties. So the next thing is we have the powdery mildew covered, grape berry moth. Usually in previous podcasts through the season, earlier in the season, first couple generations, we talked about using the network for environment and weather applications, or NUA. Right now, the model, the grape berry moth model on NUA, isn't really useful because we get generational overlap. So you'll have the first generation comes out and you have the moths, and we can say, okay, about 810 degree days with the model is when we need to put on an application, 1620 for the next generation, but we start getting these overlaps. So what we're seeing now is that you have females out there laying eggs pretty much constantly through there. So if you have, especially again with the wine grape varieties where we worry about the rots that get in there, the botrytis, the sour rot, the whole rot complex. When the berry moth larvae hatch out and they start feeding on the berry surface, it creates an opening for the rot complexes to get in there. So if you have a history of rots in that variety, you may want to make sure that you continue to control grape berry moth later into the season. However, with both powdery mildew and with grape berry moth, so we're talking fungicides and insecticides, we need to make sure that we look at the pesticide label and look at the pre-harvest interval, because if you use the wrong material, you have a 30-day pre-harvest interval, that means that you spray and you have to wait 30 days until you can harvest that crop. So get an idea of when you're thinking you're going to be harvesting, look at the materials that are available to you, and pick the one that has the pre-harvest interval that works best for you. With insecticides especially, we also see where there's seasonal use restrictions on different active ingredients. So you have to make sure, again, you have to read the label and make sure that you're not over applying an active ingredient. And again, switching from one label to another, so if we switch from one brand name to another brand name, that doesn't necessarily mean that we switched active ingredients. So don't look at the brand name, look on the label, look at the active ingredient, and that is the part that has the seasonal use restrictions, not the brand name portion. So again, read the label, label's the law, and if you do that, you'll be able to harvest your grapes in a timely manner and take care of any pest problems that you have along the way. If you have any questions, you have any comments, you have suggestions for future podcasts, please leave them in the comment section below.